Welcome back, legends. I hope you're all amazing and I hope you've all had a fantastic week. It is Friday, which means it is time for another installment of Friday Q&A. If you've got a question that you would like me to answer on next week's video, put it in the comments section below. And if you like what I do here on YouTube and you want to support me directly, there are a variety of different links you can follow in the video description to do just that. Let's go. Start by following up on last week's question about the so-called JHS effect. And it was pretty cool to see a bunch of people got the point of those videos, that it's not just waiting for somebody on the internet to tell you what's cool and then to go and get the cool thing. It's more about embracing the search for guitar tone and embracing the fact that sometimes you can get to a particular guitar sound via very unconventional methods. And part of the thrill of being creative and making creative guitar noises is that thrill of the chase, where maybe you search out really weird pedals that you've never heard about, or a guitar brand you've never heard about, or a particular way of running an amp that almost nobody else does, but you do it. And that's how you find your sound. And you have a whole bunch of fun while you're doing it. That's the point. And it was really cool to see so many people in the comment section kind of get that point. So I want to follow up on it and ask you, what are you using in your rig that's maybe a little bit unconventional or a little bit unsung? I would love to hear about it, because it's just kind of cool to tell this whole community what you're doing with your tone and why it turns you on. How would I go about getting a Firehouse style guitar tone? Well, if you're a Fractal user, I saw a couple of weeks ago, Bill Levity from Firehouse, who uses a Fractal FM3 Live, posted their live preset up on the forum. Now, you're not going to sound like Bill. Nobody else is going to sound like Bill, but getting that preset and kind of using it as a reference point for your own live tones and getting ideas from how to run a rig in the FM3 or the AXFX3, I think is awesome. For what it's worth, I tried the preset out with a few of my guitars and I thought it sounded really, really good. He's using like a 5153 style amp in there and it sounds really, really raunchy and 80s as you would expect. So go and check that one out on the forum. Speaking of specific guitar tones, how would I go about dialing in a power metal guitar tone? Power metal is one of those super niche genres that's, you know, about this wide, but a few million kilometers deep. There are so many power metal subgenres. And, you know, off the top of my head, when I think about power metal, especially European power metal from the 90s, you've got the stuff that basically just sounds like beefed up Judas Priest, like bands like Hammerfall, where it's two guitars, drums, it's raunchy and it's crunchy. And, you know, it's pretty straightforward that it's just going to be a high gain amp, maybe with a boost in front of it. And then you've also got bands like kind of Primal Fear in that particular category as well, which to me just sound like the heaviest version of Racer X ever. At the other end of the scale, you have bands like Rhapsody of Fire, where the guitar has to sit in a mix with orchestrations. So if you heard that guitar tone on its own, it might sound a little bit thin and nasal, but you got to keep in mind that, you know, they've got this massive, massive tonal spectrum going on. So I would say you could just probably use any modern high gain amp, dialing a little bit of gain, a whole bunch of mids, and then put something like a graphic EQ or a tube screamer in front of it and use a really high quality speaker, like probably a Vintage 30 or a Greenback, and you're gonna have a good time. What did I get up to when I was sick a couple of weeks ago? I played a whole bunch of video games. I actually played through Perfect Dark on the Nintendo 64, which I haven't done since I was 15 or 16. And the sound design and the soundtrack in that brought back so many memories. I really, really enjoyed that. I also played a lot of guitar. You know, I wasn't really feeling like talking to a camera at all or anything like that. So I just sat around and did a whole bunch of ambient noodling and did some practice. So that was kind of nice and a great way to distract myself from the fact I wasn't feeling too crash hot for a few days. I also got around to putting new strings on a whole bunch of different guitars, which was long, long overdue. I've basically only been restringing the guitars that I play live. There's maybe 4 or 5 of those that I have in rotation, but I got to put some strings on a bunch of different guitars. So you might see my 335 popping up on some demos in the very, very near future, which is a great sounding guitar. I forgot about it. And, you know, my Les Paul and a bunch of other guitars like that. I also put new machine heads on my Hamer Standard. I'm going to do a standalone video about that very soon. Have I ever checked out an Oswald guitar? I had not even heard of these until this was mentioned. So I went on their Instagram and I went on their website. I kind of saw their traditional style designs, you know, the Strat with a little bit of an offset and the Telly, but I like that kind of Strat Telly hybrid that they do. That's pretty cool. I got to commend them for making something that is a fusion of those two guitars that doesn't look totally terrible. So if anybody out there has actually tried one of these guitars, let me know how you like it in the comments. Speaking of cool new pieces of gear, I saw the Meris LVX that was announced, and I love delay, and I know a bunch of you out there love delay as well, because I got a bunch of questions about it immediately, and we were chatting about it on Discord. If you want to join the Discord server, link in the video description. But there are a few things that jumped out at me reading the manual, because I kind of have this perverse habit of reading the manual of things that aren't released yet. But looking at the categories and elements and the way you have kind of set things like the mix, the feedback mixer, the delay line, and then you've got locations. Like, looks like you can put things in the feedback loop. It looks like you can put things before the delay and after the delay. Basically, if you've seen my Axe-FX 3 delay designer video, it looks like you can do a lot of that stuff. And then there's different categories that you can put in these locations, like dynamics, a compressor, swell, diffusion. That is super, super awesome that there's diffusion in there. You've got preamps like a tube, transistor, op amp. You've got drive, a bit crusher. There's really, really cool. There's filters, including a comb filter, state variable filter, ladder filter, and then there's a bunch of cool pitch stuff like microtune. That's awesome. There's lo-fi in there. There's harmony. There's a polychroma. There's a bunch of stuff like chorus and flanger, dynamic flanger, which I would be very keen to try, cassette, barber pole, and granulized in there. And there's a modifier system. It kind of sounds like the closest thing to the Fractal delay block that I've seen in a pedal before. So I'm probably going to pre-order one and check it out. Let me know what you would want to see in videos for that particular unit, because I like delay. 3.5-inch versus 7 or 8-inch monitors for guitar tones at home. It's tough to say because I've only ever used my Atom A7s, and I guess if you're getting good results, then you can dial in a tone on your 3.5-inch monitors and have that tone translate well to a live setting, then I wouldn't worry too much about it. You know, monitors are a very, very personal thing. And I think if you look at them side by side on a spec by spec basis, given kind of comparable specs, the monitor that is best is the one that you're most familiar with. So yeah, I couldn't say, yeah, you definitely need 7-inch monitors, but I think you're probably going to get more low end out of them. And like I said, I love my Atoms so much. I recommend them to just about everybody who says, what monitors should I get? Because I'm familiar with the Atoms, but having said that, if you've got 3.5-inch monitors and you pull sick tones, that's all that matters. What's up with this double neck? I've featured this on the channel a few times. Look how big it is. But my dad made this. This is a replica of a Gibson Double 12, which they did not make many units of. And, you know, didn't have a Double 12 as a reference, so he just photocopied a bunch of images from a book, blew them up to scale, and made this guitar. And it's pretty awesome. If you haven't checked out the videos I've done with it, they're up on the channel. And I actually used this in a pretty unique way on the Ragdoll song Shine. If you have a listen to the intro, what we did was we turned the 12-string neck on in an open tuning, and then I played the melody on this neck here, but this neck wasn't on. So what you were getting was the melody notes were resonating with the open tuning up here, and we put it through a bunch of effects, and that's a big swell that you hear at the start of the Ragdoll song Shine. Let me know what you would like to hear on this guitar in a future video, because I feel like I should pull it out and jam on it. This next question is an absolute perler, and I probably spent way more time on this than I should have, but let's go. Some of you know that I've got a background in maths, so I was asked, how would I play the time signature E/4? A truly irrational time signature. And I immediately thought, well, that's ridiculous because, you know, E, it's not an integer. It's not even a rational number. I know you've probably seen those videos on irrational time signatures, you know, like 5/6, which is probably a poor choice of language. 5/6 is definitely a rational number. Something like E/4, that's truly irrational. But then I thought, you know what? You can have a series representation of E, like 1 plus 1 plus 1 over 2 plus 1 over 3 factorial plus 1 over 4 factorial, and so on, an infinite sum. And then I thought, that's interesting, because if 1 represents a quarter note, like a single beat, that would be like having 2 beats, and then the half, it's like half a quarter note. So that could be half a beat, an eighth note, and then 24th value, which is a 16th note triplet. And then you've got a 196th value, which is a 64th note triplet. You could keep going with this. And if you had a sequencer which could quantize down to these really, really tiny fractions, you could just push it out as much as you like. I'm such a nerd. I actually went, all right, let's do 2 quarter notes plus an eighth note plus a 16th note triplet plus a 64th note triplet. And I'll put up a screenshot here, and then I wrote a groove with it, and then I put drums and bass and a keyboard on it, and I played a guitar solo over it. So here is the series approximation to E over 4. Have a great week. Thanks for watching.